Hi, I'm Jenny Rushmore of Cashmerette, and today I'm going to show you how to sew darts. Learning how to sew darts is an essential skill when you are first learning to sew. They are triangles of fabric that are stitched together and pressed in one way or another. And what they do is they provide shaping. In particular, they provide really great bust shaping. So if you have a large bust, this is an absolutely essential skill for you. But they also appear in other places, most commonly like waist darts or back darts and things like that. So let's get on with it. To sew a dart, the first thing you need to do is mark the dart on the fabric pattern piece. So here is the piece that I used for this dress, and here is the piece of fabric that I cut out. So there are various different ways to mark the dart, but I'm going to show you my favorite one. So what I do, and you can certainly do this when you are still cutting it out at the cutting out stage, is I'm going to line my pattern piece up on my fabric, and I'm going to take a pin and I am simply going to pin through the paper and the fabric there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut in, make little notches at either end of the dart legs here. So I'm just going to snip there and snip there. Now I'm going to carefully turn it over, making sure that the pin doesn't slip out. I'm turning it all the way over so you guys can see, but if it was just me, I would just do a little bit. And then I'm going to mark on the back where that pin's come through. Now I can take the pin out, I can take the paper out, and now I'm going to finish marking the dart. Now I'm doing this in a pen so that you can see it clearly, but you should do it in either a washable marker or a chalk liner so that it will come out after you sew it. So now I'm simply going to join up the dot and the notch at the edge. Doing it this way, I find, is the most accurate and it's the easiest way to get a straight line. There we go. So I've marked it on the wrong side, so that's going to be the inside of the garment. This is the right side and this is the wrong side. So the next thing I'm going to do is pin this dart. So I'm going to get my pins and I'm going to turn it around just because I'm right-handed. And I'm going to fold the dart through the middle. And what I'm aiming to do is I am aiming to get this dart leg and this dart leg on top of each other. Now, the easiest way to do that is start by matching the notches at the side, and then I hold the end of the dart, and then I just kind of roughly fold it in two. And then I'm going to use two pins. The first one, I'm just going to keep the ends together here. And the second one, I'm going to put through the end of the dart to keep it here. Now, if you are lucky, these two lines are now matching each other, but they might not be. So here's the way you test. You take a pin through the middle on the one side and you look on the other side. Now, in this case, yes, it's almost identical, but let's just imagine it was a little bit off. I'm just going to push it. Oh, it's not matching. So in that case, you would turn it over and you would try and line these up. And basically you do that until, oh, see, that's actually slightly off now. You do it until the dart legs are precisely matching up. Now, usually I have you pin at a right angle to the seam, but sewing darts is one of the times when I do recommend pinning along the line because it will help you get an accurately pinned dart. Okay, so there it's pinned. Now, something to bear in mind, when you put it into your machine, you generally want to have the smaller amount of fabric to the right of the needle and the larger amount of fabric to the left. So when I'm pinning this side, I'm pinning like this so that I can pull the pins out as I sew. For the other side, I'm actually going to pin it in the opposite direction. Now, if you don't, this is fine. And as a beginner, it doesn't matter. But what we are going to do is we're going to start always sewing at this end and end at this end, which means that you want to be able to pull the pins out this way. If they're that way, it's actually very difficult. Okay, so with this dart pinned, let's go over and sew it. So now I have the dart at the sewing machine. So as I was explaining before, the dart extension is on the right of the needle, the whole rest of the garment is on the left. And I'm going to start at the end, at the side seam, and I'm just going to take this first pin out. Never want to sew over pins, you're going to have a problem. I'm on a straight stitch, 2.5 millimeters. I'm going to take 2 or 3, roughly, stitches forward, press the reverse button and go back, and then carry on. So that was back stitching. I'm going to carefully go along, taking out the pins as I encounter them. And then I'm going to stop here. So one of the big things you want to avoid on darts is puffy or pointy ends, which can happen if you don't do the end nice and precisely. So the first thing I'd say is you don't backstitch here. So whatever the technique you want to use, you don't backstitch. What I'm going to show you today is the easiest thing to do as a beginner. There are different ways, and I talk about that in the book, Sewing the Curve, but I'm going to show you the easiest way. So to do that, I am literally going to sew off the end of the dart. So I'm sewing on nothing. I'm going to lift the needle, lift the presser foot, and then I'm going to pull it off the machine and cut the threads a few inches along. So I now have just gone straight off the edge, and I've cut the edge. I've continued sewing basically on thin air. So now I am going to separate these two threads, the needle and the bobbin thread, and I'm simply going to, hold on, they're a little bit wound up there. So one thing you can do is use a pin to separate them, if I can get it going. There we go. Okay, so I've got the two threads here, and I'm simply going to knot them. So I knot them a couple of times just because you don't want it to go away. But by doing this, you're getting a really nice, neat point. So I've done that, and now all I'm going to do is trim those threads off right there. Okay, so both darts are sewn now. Now we need to press, and this is a really important step to make sure that your darts look good. So the first thing you're going to do is press them flat. And what that means is press them just like they were sewn. So it was sewn like this, and I'm just going to press it flat. So just like this. And there we go. Okay? Now you're going to open up your dart, and you want to get your tailor's ham or a rolled up towel, but you basically just need a curve. Place it underneath the dart, and then kind of pull the fabric so that the dart area is flat over. And basically this is mimicking like your breast when you're wearing this. So you want to make sure that the fabric is flat, especially around the end. And in most cases, you want to press the dart down. Now, in some cashmerette patterns, we actually have you press it up because it can be nicer for larger boobs, but it's not always possible depending on the pattern. If you do press it up, you then need to trim off this piece of dart extension afterwards. But in cashmerette, we always give you the option to press down, but we sometimes suggest pressing up. In this case, I'm going to press down. So I'm going to flip it down. And when you do that, this dart extension should precisely match the side seam. That's how you know that you did it accurately. So put it over, make sure this is all flat, there's no bunching up here, and then you are going to press again. So again, you don't press forward and backwards, you just press up and down. You can use a little steam. There. So that's nice and flat. And then the final step is pressing it from the right side. Now, if you are using nice fabric, you definitely want to use a press cloth. I am not here because I am just demonstrating it for you. But you would want to use a press cloth, and that will help protect your fabric. And now you want to press from the right side. So now you have a nicely pressed dart, and it has a rounded shape. And now you simply do the other side. And now you know how to sew darts. If you want to learn to sew more with me, there's a couple of different ways. First of all, check out my book, Sewing the Curve. It's the ultimate beginner guide to learning to sew your own clothes, and it comes with 6 brand new patterns ranging from a simple tunic and dress all the way up to a lined dress and a quilted jacket. Head over to cashmerette.com/learn to sew to learn more about the book and find lots more videos like this. Also, sign up for our beginner newsletter by going to cashmerette.com/learn to sew newsletter, where you'll get lots of tips and tricks and special offers as they come in.